The small town of Ravens Hollow was always blanketed in a quiet calm during Christmas. Snowflakes would drift lazily from the sky, covering everything in a pristine white sheet, muffling footsteps and lending a peaceful hush to the night. Each house was adorned with twinkling lights and wreaths. Children left cookies and milk by the fireplace, dreaming of the jolly old man in red who would slide down their chimneys. But this year was different. A sinister chill swept through Ravens Hollow, one that gnawed at the bones and whispered nightmares into sleeping ears. Parents dismissed it as just a harsh winter, the coldest in a generation, they said, but the children felt it in their hearts. Something dark was creeping into their town. Something that wore the guise of joy. Martha Jennings was 8 years old and wiser than her years. She had a way of seeing the world that adults often missed. And that Christmas Eve, as she stared out her window, she saw something. In the distance, beyond the snow-covered trees, a figure moved. It wasn't the jolly silhouette she expected to see. No round belly, no cheerful gait. This figure was tall and thin, its limbs spindly like the branches of a dead tree. The moonlight glinted off a crimson coat, torn and tattered at the edges, the fabric wet and dark as though soaked in something other than snow. "Santa," Martha whispered. But even as she said it, dread coiled in her stomach. This figure didn't look like the Santa Claus of her storybooks. The way it moved, jerky and unnatural, its head twitching to the side, made her want to pull the curtains closed and never open them again. But she didn't. The figure stopped. Its head turned slowly, impossibly far, until it was facing her window. Even from a distance, Martha could see its eyes, two pinpricks of crimson light, burning in the darkness. They locked onto her, and a crooked smile split the figure's face. Teeth, long and sharp, glinted like shards of glass. Martha's breath caught in her throat. She stumbled back from the window, heart pounding. She wanted to scream for her parents, but she knew they wouldn't believe her. They'd tell her she was imagining things, that she was just excited for Christmas morning. But there would be no Christmas morning if that thing had its way. At exactly midnight, the Jennings doorbell rang. Martha's parents woke groggily. Mr. Jennings frowned, glancing at the clock. "Who could that be at this hour?" he mumbled. "Maybe it's carolers," Mrs. Jennings suggested, though doubt colored her voice. Mr. Jennings pulled on his robe and shuffled to the door. He hesitated, hand on the knob. The air felt colder than it should, the chill seeping through the wood and into his bones. He took a deep breath and opened the door. No one was there. Just the empty street, the wind blowing snow across the front porch. But something was there, he could feel it. A presence, watching from the shadows. "Hello?" he called, his breath forming clouds in the icy air. Silence. Mr. Jennings shivered and shut the door, locking it tight. "Must have been kids playing a prank," he said, though he didn't believe it. As he turned back toward the staircase, he froze. Wet, muddy footprints led from the front door into the living room, prints that hadn't been there a moment ago. They were too large to be a child's and ended abruptly in front of the fireplace. The milk and cookies were gone, only crumbs and an overturned glass remaining. But what made Mr. Jennings' blood run cold was the fireplace itself. The soot-stained bricks were smeared with something dark, something that glistened wetly. A single word was scratched into the hearthstone, "Naughty." Upstairs, Martha hid beneath her blankets, her tiny body shaking. She heard the creak of the floorboards outside her room. Slow, deliberate steps, each one heavier than the last. "Ho, ho, ho." The voice was deep, guttural, each syllable dripping with malice. It wasn't the warm, jolly laugh she knew. This laugh was a death rattle, a promise of pain. The door handle twisted. She squeezed her eyes shut, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Please go away, please go away." The door creaked open. A wave of cold air swept into the room, carrying with it the stench of decay and something metallic. She felt a presence looming over her bed, its breath hot and rancid. "Martha," the voice whispered. Her heart stopped. Slowly, she opened her eyes. The figure towered over her, its crimson coat hanging in tatters, soaked with something thick and black. Its face was obscured by a mask of matted white hair and twisted flesh. The eyes, those burning red eyes, bored into hers. "I know when you've been bad," it hissed. A skeletal hand reached out, its fingers ending in cracked, yellowed nails. Martha screamed. The next morning, Raven's Hollow awoke to a terrible sight. The Jennings front door stood wide open, snow drifting into the house. The living room was in disarray, the tree overturned, ornaments shattered, crimson streaks smeared across the walls. Of Martha, there was no sign. Only a single gift remained beneath the tree, wrapped in blood-red paper and tied with a black ribbon. The tag read, "To the naughty ones." The police never found Martha, nor did they find the figure that haunted her last moments. But every Christmas Eve, the children of Raven's Hollow leave their windows closed and their fires burning bright. They know that Santa Claus isn't always kind. Sometimes, he's a shadow in the night, a whisper of dread. And he's always watching. Ho, ho, ho.